15 and Dirty Dozen is your go-to list for the fruits, vegetables, and produce items, or at least the most common ones, that you would want to buy organic, that you would want to be saying, okay, I can get away with getting this thing conventional. Remember, if you can afford everything organic, go for it. But if you're shopping on a budget, you would want conventional items to be on right here, the bottom, the green, right there, Clean 15. So if it's on the Clean 15, it's okay for me to get a conventional. This whole list is all aimed at cutting down the amount of chemical toxicity in your body from herbicides and pesticides. So, Doc, how do I know if it's conventional or organic or genetically modified? Great question. There's little stickers. So, little sticker, PLU code on the sticker. You guys see that? The PLU code, based on the number that the PLU code is, you're gonna see 9 means divine. 9 means it's organic. So you don't always trust what's on the shelf if it's labeled as being organic. You want to just double check and look at the PLU code number. 9 is organic, 4 means conventionally grown, and then any other number you can probably be pretty assured that it's genetically modified. The lower on the glycemic index, obviously it's going to have a much less significant effect at spiking your blood sugar levels. So if you're doing the Maximize Living Advanced Plan, honestly, you really shouldn't be eating a whole lot of fruit at all. But if you're on the Maximize Living Core Plan, and if we haven't discussed the Core and Advanced Plan with you yet, you want to schedule to do probably a nutrition consultation. With the Core Plan, you can get away with eating certain fruits. You're going to be eating the fruits that are going to be lower on the glycemic index because they're not going to spike your blood sugar levels nearly as much. Top left, you're going to see calories, right? So this says it's got 170 calories, and then to the right of that, it's going to say total fat calories, 150. So rule number 1 is it's all about healthy fats, okay? Healthy fats. And so if I'm not getting healthy fats, part of the issue is it's going to affect cellular respiration. And when it comes to health for us, regardless of the cell in my body, if it's a nerve cell, liver cell, heart cell, skin cells, they all fundamentally need some really healthy fat. If I don't get healthy fat, things can't get in, and then things can't get out of control. And if that happens to me, what's going to happen really quick? I can't get anything in, I can't get anything out, I'm going to swell up, I'm going to inflame. That's basically what happens with, you walked in on a weird part of that, huh? That's basically what happens with your cells when you get bad fats. So what are examples of bad fats? Trans fat, hydrogenated oils, those are examples of trans fats, bad fats. When you get bad fats in, that's what they do. So when we get healthy fats in, it actually allows our body to shift more towards a fat-burning metabolism. It speeds our metabolism up, it increases cellular respiration and the division of healthy cells in the body. If I start dividing 6 cells in the body, what is that? Beginning of neoplastic cells and cancer. Cool? Okay, so rule number 1, total calories, 170. If my fat calories are more than 30% of that total number, I need to look at the ingredients and figure out where is the fat coming from. Is it a good fat or is it a bad fat? Cool? So what is 30% of 170? Roughly 55-ish. So this is way higher at 150. So the next thing I'm going to do is go down to the ingredient list. And the way the ingredient list works is the first ingredient is the highest concentration, down to the last ingredient is the lowest concentration. So the first ingredient on this is non-GMO or non-genetically modified expeller pressed canola oil. What is the canola plant? Does anybody know? I don't. I've never
Canadian.
heard of the canola plant. Little history on canola oil. It's a really, really bad oil. It's a lot of different vegetable oils that Canada put together and basically made Canada oil or canola oil, and they did it as a solution because importing the palm oil that they used to use in fast food restaurant chains became extremely expensive for the country, so they had to come up with a solution. And their solution was cheap vegetable oils. So the problem with it is it's just a big mixture of really bad oils. So On your list, you're going to see good fats versus bad fats, I believe, on the back of the front page. And on the back of the front page there, you're going to see a list of what are all the good fats that you're looking for. So pretty much if it isn't 100% grapeseed oil, if it isn't coconut oil, and if it isn't 100% virgin olive oil, with the caveat the olive oil cannot have been heated, then you want to pretty much put it back, because a lot of the other oils are going to be rancid oils. So it's not meant to be heated up. So olive oil is going to be okay and good for you if you use it on cold things. Drizzle it on an avocado, sprinkle some light pepper on there, it's really good. But if you're storing olive oil next to the stove or by a heat source, it's going to damage the oil. So at the end of the day, if you're looking for what oils do I cook with, it's going to be extra virgin, cold pressed, organic coconut oil, and then 100% unrefined grapeseed oil are going to be the two big ones. But recently, I'm a little weary of grapeseed oil, and there's reasons for it, because of hexane gas that they supposedly use. You're going to get a lot of hexane compounds that are going to be in the oil. So
you use avocado oil, it has the same flash point as grapeseed oil at about 500 degrees.
Correct. Avocado oil can be very expensive, which is sometimes why I won't recommend it, but avocado oil is a go, like a good oil. If you like mayonnaise, probably your best bet when it comes to mayonnaise, unless you're going to be making your own. So this is usually my go-to if I'm eating like eggs, making egg salad or like tuna salad, which is pretty much the only thing that where I'm like, well, I need like a mayonnaise like substance. This would be your go-to. When I'm looking at the rules, rule number 1, total calories 90. And calories, just so you guys know what that means, it's like how much energy my body needs to expend in order to break this down so that the nutrients that are in this can be absorbed into the body. Cool? So of all of the total energy my body would have to expend, 80 of the 90 calories are going to be on fat. So what do I have to do? Look at the ingredient list. Cool, you guys are awesome. Grapeseed oil is the first ingredient. Then the second ingredient is filtered water, ground rice syrup, apple cider vinegar, soy protein, sea salt, mustard flour, lemon juice concentrate. So it's only got about 7 ingredients in there, and the first one's grapeseed oil. It's probably one of the best options you can find on the shelves in terms of a good solution for mayonnaise. Cool? So when it comes to grains, the deal with grains is any white flour-based product typically is going to convert to sugar very quickly in the body. In fact, for some of the carbohydrates, when it hits your tongue, amylase on your tongue will break that down in about 8 seconds and convert it into sugar. So when it comes to Maximize Living Core and Advanced Plan, the whole idea is we're trying to cut down the amount of carbohydrates that we're consuming that are refined carbohydrates. And then on top of that, once we get the refined carbohydrates out, those are like the fake sugars and the things that are already pretty much broken down to where it spikes my blood sugar levels. We're also going to be getting out some of the natural grains that are lower on the totem pole for grains that are going to quickly convert to sugar. So like white rice would be an example of that, even brown rice, jasmine rice. Those things, when you eat a large quantity of it, will spike your blood sugar levels. So what you're looking for is to try and convert and switch to something that's going to be lower on the totem pole at spiking your blood sugar levels. And one of our go-tos is always going to be quinoa. Has anybody here eaten quinoa before? Okay, so we're all quinoa fans. Now we get to talk about taking it up a notch. So if you're doing regular quinoa, you've got the whole grain white quinoa that's right here, and then you've got the red quinoa. Typically with grains, I don't know if every nutritionist would agree with me, but the darker grain is going to be better for you. Typically it takes a lot longer cooking it to break it down to get it soft enough to where it's considered like really, really good crunch factor to eat it, if you get what I mean. Or like al dente is what they would call it with pasta. So the longer it takes to cook, the better it's going to be for you. And a good example of that is when you look at oats. You've got instant oats, rolled oats, steel cut oats. And when it comes to all of your options that you have for each item, you're gonna have like the good, the okay, the best, or like the good, the bad, the ugly, so to speak. Instant oats, I pour water into that right away. It's considered edible. I can eat it. So it's already been pulverized, broken down. there's not as much nutritional value to that as you would have with rolled oats. With rolled oats, at least I have to cook it for about 5 minutes before I can eat it. And then you've got steel cut oats where you have to literally soak it the night before for like, I don't know, 5 hours and then cook it for what, 25 minutes or something like that. So the steel cut oats are going to be the best option when it comes to oats. Similarly, the darker the grain, the better for you. You got red quinoa, but one of the things with grains and with nuts and with rice is when you soak them, when you submerge them in water and you let that sit for a long period of time, depending on which one it is, the time factor will change, and some of them you might have to lightly heat it or put it in a dehydrator like rice. Basically what you're going to be doing is pulling out this thing called phytic acid, and phytic acid is going to prohibit your digestive system from being able to absorb a lot of the nutrient. So when you see the word sprouted, typically what that means is they've taken something like the quinoa right here, and they've actually put it in the water, they've let it sit, they've let it begin to sprout, as if I planted a seed and it starts to crack open and grow. That's basically what they do with it. So the sprouted quinoa is like the go-to. If you guys haven't tried sprouted quinoa, go for it. But quinoa, generally speaking, is about 30% protein. So it's going to be really good for you. So when it comes to nuts and you're buying it in bulk like this, the raw nuts are going to be the best ones for you. My favorite go-tos are going to be cashews. Macadamia nuts are my all-time favorite, and I absolutely adore those. And then almonds. The nuts you want to try and stay away from in large quantities are going to be peanuts and pistachios. Why do you guys think that might be? Peanuts and pistachios, typically, these are already peeled, but you're going to notice different colors and different coloration in there is because they're high fungal content. So here's a good example. They get shipped like that and stored like that, where the shells are cracked open, and so a lot of stuff can grow in them, and they end up being more inflammatory because of that. Does that make sense? So peanut butter, for instance, is one of those things where if you're used to eating large quantities of peanut butter, you probably want to shift towards a different nut like almond butter or cashew butter, which is really good for you because it's going to be less inflammatory. What to do is practice reading labels, because on the front of this, I love roasted nuts because they taste good. Well, why do they taste better? Part of it is because it's salted, but the question is, what is it roasted in? There's a big difference between roasted and dry roasted. Dry roasted typically means that you took the nut, you put it onto a sheet, you put it in the oven, and you just cooked it. So it's being cooked in the oil that's already in the nut, as opposed to regular roasted. It doesn't specify that it's dry roasted. If I turn this around and look at the ingredient list, I do my due diligence. It takes 2 seconds. Ingredients: 1, cashews. Number 2, expeller pressed canola oil.
Dun, dun,
What that means is they took the nuts, put them on a sheet, and then drizzled canola oil all over it, which is a bad fat. So they ruined it. They ruined what God made. What the heck? So this would be the one I would go for if I was buying the back nut, unless I could find raw or dry roasted. Fish. Let's talk about meat. Specifically, we're going to be talking about fish. When it comes to fish, I love salmon, right? Who doesn't like a good salmon dinner? I'm going to have 3 different options here, and these are all found in the exact same grocery store, obviously. So the question is, well, Doc, how do I know if I'm buying a really good fish? Well, when it comes to quality for the fish, one of the things you're going to be looking for is wild caught. Wild caught should mean that you go out to the ocean if it's an ocean fish, or you go out to the river if it's a river fish, and you throw a little fishing rod in there and you catch the fishy, right? Okay. What is the difference between wild caught, farm raised, and what this one says, which is Atlantic salmon? So you have to do your due diligence and read this. This one says right here, farm raised Atlantic salmon fillet. So there's multiple fish farms that are all over the country, and they'll raise fish not in their natural habitat, and then they have to feed it a food that is actually going to dye the meat of the fish. Because for farm raised salmon, as an example, if I don't feed it food which is called, I believe it's called Panaford. So Panaford is, to color it, it grows as a gray meat. So what you're going to notice is the difference between wild caught and then farm raised is going to be pretty striking in the coloration. So this one's more naturally pink on its own. This one's going to be kind of like whitish pink, where you can tell that there's something off about it.
Malnourished.
Yeah, a little malnourished. So this one says farm raised Atlantic salmon. So does this one. I just realized they're basically the same thing, so I'll throw that one away. But when it comes to label reading, wild caught sockeye salmon, usually it will tell you actually where they got it from. It'll have a city on it, or a port, like Singapore, for instance, or somewhere outside of China. And I'm not seeing it on
Or
this
Alaska.
one. Oh, here it is. Product of USA wild caught. So sometimes they will actually say like the specific country and city that it came from, so you know what ocean. So that's going to be your go-to is wild caught for all of the fish. When you're eating the fish, you want to be sticking to small wild caught sardines, and anchovies are actually really good fat content for you and going to be lower in mercury. But if you're going to be eating game fish, you want to be eating a fish that's going to naturally flake when you cook it, thicker chunks, not the one that's going to be like a bottom feeder whitefish that's gooey, like catfish, for instance, or flounder. Those things come out with really low quality meat, so it's not going to be as good fats for you. Anyway, do your due diligence and read this. Farm raised Atlantic salmon. What that means is they raised it in the Atlantic Ocean, and that's part of the way they can deceive you, is saying it's Atlantic salmon, so it's from the ocean. But what they do is actually cage it in the ocean so it can't swim and naturally forage for its own food on its own. And then right there in the ingredients it says salmon, astaxanthin for color from Panaford. So it says right in the ingredients that they've fed it dyed food, or food, I guess, that's like radioactive and changes the color. I don't know how it works. But take my word for it. Now, when it comes to meats, the one thing, if you're going to spend extra money on anything and you're eating a lot of protein, you're eating a lot of meat, is you always spend the money and you get better quality protein first. Because you can skimp on some of the stuff in produce and still get by eating really healthy for yourself and getting more raw nutrient in. But when it comes to the meat, if you're eating the wrong type of meats, you're going to highly increase your intake of potentially harmful things like antibiotics and vaccination, like trace medications from vaccinations, human growth hormone, different things that they're going to actually administer to the meats that you're eating. So knowing the source of where your meat comes from is very, very important. And sometimes you have to spend the extra money to get the good quality meat. But Whole Foods is really cool about telling you in a somewhat reliable way of the source of your meat and the quality of your meat. And they have little pamphlets here that will kind of break it down, but they've got a stage or a step system that they use, and it's listed right across the glass, as well as up here with the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 plus. The ones that you're going to be looking for, staying towards, are going to be the 4 and the 5 pluses. So the 4, 5, and 5 plus. Basically, has it been caged? Has the animal been allowed to move about on its own? Has it been administered any antibiotics? Recombinant bovine growth hormone, human growth hormone? Has it been vaccinated? Has it been fed what it's supposed to naturally eat? Those are all things that are kind of important if I was looking at the quality of the meat that I'm going to put in my body. So for instance, cows. Cows eat what?
Grass.
Cows eat grass. So I would probably want to get a cow that's been able to move about on its own, on a pasture, eating grass, as opposed to a cow that's been conventionally fed corn and grain. When you feed a cow corn and grain, it will get fatter faster. The problem is it starts having the wrong type of fat. You guys have heard of omegas, omega-3 and omega-6. They all say omega-3 is good for you, it's anti-inflammatory, you want omega-3. But then you've also heard that red meat is bad for you because it's got bad fat. And animal fat is bad for you. Most of the studies that were done in the 70s, 80s, and 90s were studies that are controversial as to who was paying for the research in the first place, but then also the studies were done on animals that were conventionally grown. So if I study an already sick cow that doesn't have good ratio of fat, obviously it's going to yield to the conclusion's going to be, hey, maybe it's bad fat for me. But they never really started to study grass-fed cow. So when you start looking at the difference between grass-fed and grain-fed, a grain-fed cow has really, really bad ratios of omega-6 to omega-3. In your body makes both of them, omega-6 and omega-3, so they're both healthy fats, technically. Because your body would make omega-6 if you didn't need it, right? It's just all about whether or not you have the right ratio. So the healthy ratio is 2 to 1. So 2 omega-6 for every 1 omega-3. So that's what you're looking for in the meat that you eat. And if you can find it in the meat that you eat, then it's going to be a healthy fat source for you. Wild-caught fish are going to be a great example of healthy fat ratios, but then also grass-fed cow. Grass-fed cattle is anywhere from a 4 to 1 ratio to a 2 to 1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, versus a conventionally fed, corn or grain-fed cow is going to be upwards of 20 to 30 to 1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, which means it's about 15 times as inflammatory fat. So when it comes to red meat, what are we buying? Grass-fed cows.
Grass-fed.
So we've got this thing in here. It's called the RTNC, Reaction Triggering Neurotoxic Chemicals. So part of the reason why we're going to read our ingredient label is because in the ingredients, companies, different food companies can hide questionable chemicals and questionable additives by changing the name. For instance, MSG. Who's heard of MSG? Monosodium glutamate. Okay, everybody's heard of MSG. What's the deal with MSG? Why is it so bad for me? It's a thing called an excitotoxin. Excitotoxin means it causes a certain part of my brain, the cells, to fire way faster than what they should. And as an example, MSG, when it does that, will light up a part of my brain called the excitatory and the salivatory center of my brain. It will make me salivate, produce more saliva, and also kind of excite me a little bit, or at least my brain, and trick me into thinking that what I'm eating tastes better than it actually does. The problem is MSG is colorless, tasteless, odorless. You don't know it's in the food. Typically it's in, takeout Chinese food, which is part of the reason why it's good a week later. Still tastes great. The problem is the excitotoxin, if it causes that part of your brain to continue to fire and fire and fire, eventually it burns those brain cells out.
Ew.
And that's why we want to avoid it. That's just MSG. Now, when it comes to reaction trigger and neurotoxic chemicals, they all have very similar effect where it is damaging to your nervous system. And so this list here, if you're buying a packaged meat, a boxed product, anything that's really been wrapped or prepared to be on the shelves for longer than natural, you have to read the ingredient lists, because in the ingredient list you might be stunned with what you find. So right here we've got smoked chicken breast and smoked turkey breast. So one of the things we can automatically notice here is the step. So one is step 1, one is step 3. The step 3 is probably going to be my better option using that step system. They are both organic, so I've got the reliability that they're organic meat, but I still want to read the ingredients because a lot of packaged meats are going to have this thing in there called sodium nitrate or sodium nitrite. Nitrate and nitrite, when they get in your stomach, they're a preservative, but when they get in your stomach, they turn into nitrosamine. Nitrosamines are a chemical that are extremely carcinogenic. And since we've started mass producing meats in this manner, and people have been eating more larger quantities of the nitrates and the nitrites, cancer rates have increased subsequently with it. We're talking about pancreatic, gallbladder type cancers, things that are not pleasant and we don't want, but they've risen very, very highly. So one of the other things you're looking for packaged meats is going to be nitrate and nitrite free. Cool? And then the other thing is, if it's a meat that's like a ham, you want it to be uncured. The curing process is where they take the meat and they let it soak in sugar and preservatives and different chemicals to draw out the flavor, so to speak. So typically cured meats are going to be higher in sugar content, but either way I'm going to do my due diligence here and I'm going to read the ingredient list, because on the ingredient list for the turkey, it's going to be organic turkey breast. Water contains less than 2% of the following: salt, carrageenan from seaweed. So there's a questionable ingredient in here, and it's called carrageenan. Carrageenan is one of the chemicals that's on that alias list. Alias list means it's names that are like wording and names that they alter and change to make it like sound different than what it is. For instance, MSG, they can label an ingredient list and call it natural flavors. Cool, natural flavors, that sounds great, Doc. Carrageenan is a carcinogen. It's a known carcinogen. It's a thickening agent that they use very commonly in almond and coconut milks, which is why when you're looking at the milk over there, you've got to make sure that carrageenan is in it. Cool? So that's questionable. I probably can get a better one. However, between the two, this is one of the interesting things. Between the two, the smoked turkey breast is going to have far fewer flavors than the smoked chicken breast. So smoked chicken breast is organic chicken breast. Water contains less than 2% of the following: organic honey, salt, organic potato starch, carrageenan from seaweed. So it's got like 2 or 3 extra ingredients in there, including potato starch and honey. You see how they'll sneak sugar and sneak different things in there? Now when it comes to cheeses, regular pasteurized milk, if you look at the ingredients, means you're making a cheese that's from very low nutritional value. And so it's gonna not have, in my opinion, the same flavor that something like a raw cheese would have. So I want for you guys to just enjoy and have the pleasure of eating some cheese. So we're gonna sample some raw cheese.
Yep.
Sheep is a cow. And then they'll also tell you if it's raw or not. And here would be a great example of raw milk from cow versus if it doesn't have the label. Back to this one over here, it's just going to be regular goat or regular cow. And if I ever want to know, I can pick up the cheese itself and look at the ingredients. So the ingredient says it's pasteurized organic cream. So pasteurized milk, organic cream. Problem is, it's still been pasteurized. Does everybody get that? Okay, cool. So you've got big difference between the two here. They're both organic valleys, so they're both organic. The thing is,
So one is raw.
they're both raw, but the big difference is this one's grass-fed, and because this one's grass-fed, I know that it's the healthy cow. They're both raw milk, so they're both good, but the problem is this one might be, even though it's raw, not necessarily the best for me because it might have the bad fat ratios still because it may have been fed organic grain. Very easily confused when it comes to eggs is cage-free, being touted as being really healthy for you, and then there's this other one called free-range, and then there's also pasture-raised. So free range and pasture raised are going to be the best ones for you because free range is very, very different than cage free. Cage free just means the chicken itself was not in a cage. But if all of us were chickens, how many of us are there here? Like 8 of us. If we're all chickens, we could be called cage free if there's one cage that all of us are in. So they crowd a bunch of chickens together in one cage, and then the chickens can't move, and they'll grow so fast that some chickens can't sustain their own body weight with their legs. Like actually like break the chicken's legs, which is really nasty, but at the end of the day, you want for your chicken to be able to roam around on its own, be able to get exercise, and then be able to eat its own food off the ground. And so free range is what you're looking for or pasture raised. The eggs are actually going to have higher amounts of vitamin D and key nutrients in there that we're looking for out of the egg. Cool. So when it comes to the milk, I've got 3 different options for this. With the milk, you're going to have the entry level, the mid-grade, and then the best, at least for our options that we have here at this store. The best actually isn't here in my opinion. However, vitamin D, regular whole fat milk would probably be the best one for me. The problem is it's right here, pasteurized, and and homogenized. So I've heated it and then damaged the fats and the protein and the nutrients in it, and then I've skimmed off all the good cream. Cool? Well, not cool, but you understand what I'm saying. And then the second option is you've got organic vitamin D. So this one's going to be better for me because at least it's organic milk. The problem is it's still pasteurized and homogenized. So if I'm looking for the best nutrient possible, then I'm going to choose neither of these. And instead, I'm going to choose this one right here, where it's non-homogenized and low temperature pasteurized at 150 degrees. So homogenized means they scoop off the fat, right? With this one, if you look closely, you're going to see a cream layer right up top. And on some of them, if you just look at the glass when it's sitting, you'll be able to see it very clearly. These are really good if you do like to drink animal milk. Like almond milk's a great option for you. First, you want to make sure it's unsweetened. Why? Because regular almond milk, if you look at the back of the label, you're going to see on regular almond milk, right here for the original, that it's going to have higher sugar content. This is 7 grams of sugar. Some of them will have upwards of 12, maybe even 14 grams of sugar. And this brings into the conversation the second thing that we're looking for when we're looking at the nutrition label. So just to refresh our memory, total calories 60, total calories from fat 20. A third of this is from fat, so the question is, where's my fat? I go to the ingredient list and I look, it's from almond milk. Okay, cool. So almonds are a healthy source of fat because it hasn't been cooked as far as I know. So that's good. Now the second thing that I'm going to be looking for is total number or total grams of sugar. So the total grams of sugar, if it's more than 6 grams of sugar per serving, it's going to spike my blood sugar levels. So I don't want that. So ideally I want to keep it below 6 grams of sugar per serving, right? So I'm going to put this one back and go for the unsweetened. Unsweetened almond milk is going to be a better option for me because it has no added sugar. If you look at the ingredients on the original one, the second ingredient is cane sugar. There you go. So wonder why it has 7 grams of sugar per serving. And then you also have to look at, well, what's the serving size? Some of us might be drinking 3 servings at once. So that could have potentially been 21 grams
Guilty.
of sugar. Now, when I look at these, you have to compare products, and when you find a product or a certain brand that you trust, it becomes very easy after you've done the initial due diligence to just come to the store and be like, okay, yeah, that's the one I buy. Because I don't have to look at it every time unless they redo the labeling, and then you want to question what else did they change in it. Now, both of these on the surface look the same. They're unsweetened, original almond milk, right? But when I look at the ingredients on them, and they may have changed it since, one of these is going to have carrageenan, and then the other one doesn't. And that's just one example of, I wonder what they changed that to. And then sunflower lectin is another one that's a questionable ingredient, but it's in both of those. So if it's got the carrageenan, you want to put it back. And the almond breeze is the one where I'm going to be like, put it back because it's got the carrageenan in it. The carrageenan, remember, is a thickening agent, gives it more milky consistency, but it's a carcinogen. It's on our alias list of ingredients we want to avoid. So this would be the one I choose.
Ding.
Now, both of these are advertised as Greek yogurt, wallaby. That's a beautiful wallaby right there. My accent is horrible. But when I look at the nutrition label, this one's hidden, so we're going to have to fold that up. There's no big deal there. But when I look at the nutrition label, one of the things I'm going to notice right away, the serving size is 1 container. But in 1 container, I'm going to have 14 grams of sugar.
Good Lord.
14 grams of sugar. And then when I look at the ingredients, raspberry fruit preparation is going to have organic cane sugar, natural flavor, pectin, which is a second sugar, fruit and vegetable juice, which is a third sugar, and then organic lemon juice, which is a small source of sugar, but technically a 4th sugar. So there's like 4 different types of sugar source in that. Probably want to put that one back, but then the original one, when I look at this one, This is still gonna have 4 grams of sugar, so it's not gonna be that bad. It'll be fine for me because 1 serving size is the whole container. Cool, healthy. And then also 1 serving size of this is gonna have 17 grams of protein.
Right on, bruh.
Yeah, right on. So do your due diligence and read the labels. But when it comes to Greek yogurt, I still want to make sure my dairy is a good source. So I'm looking for grass-fed and organic, right? It's done quick. If I can drink the yogurt for me, I'm like, sweet, I'm done, I'm full. Took care of the problem, right? Because I just need to fill myself. So I like kefir, and kefir is really, really cool because kefir is like a liquid yogurt. It's a drinkable, like, liquid yogurt. Basically, the thing with this is kefir is going to be like cultured. So they're going to take like a halfway yogurt and they're going to actually add a live probiotic bacterial culture to it. And because of that, it's going to be better for you because you're getting healthy bacteria for your gut. You're still going to get that in the yogurt, but you're going to get it at a much higher source content in the kefir. The thing with kefir is it's the same as yogurt. You have to do your due diligence. A lot of kefir is sold on the shelves that's extremely high in sugar. Coffee. Personal stance for myself on coffee is I don't drink coffee. My sisters love coffee, and I've recently convinced them to switch. And when I say switch, I don't mean stop drinking coffee and start drinking tea. I just mean instead of drinking actual coffee, the reason why I personally don't drink coffee is because of the caffeine that's in it. And then people are like, well, you can still enjoy a really good brew that's decaffeinated. My question is, how do you pull caffeine out of coffee? There is no true such thing as decaf coffee because all decaf coffee still has caffeine. But they have to chemically treat it in order to pull the caffeine out of it. And then that brings into question for me, well, what else is in there that you're not telling me about? So for myself, personally, I don't do coffee. But what you can do if you are like used to drinking coffee, you're kind of addicted to maybe the experience of it, but you're not necessarily loyal to coffee bean, if you get what I mean, is you can switch to this brand called Ticino. And Ticino is an herbal blend that is going to give you, I guess I couldn't speak on this from personal experience because again, I don't drink even the Ticino, but Deanna does. What does it taste like?
It's just like coffee, but it basically it's like tea.
It tastes just like coffee, but basically it's what? It's tea. So it's an herbal blend. And the ingredients in this one are going to be organic carob, organic barley, organic chicory root, dates, almonds, organic figs, and natural hazelnut. So the ingredients on it really aren't that bad, all things considered, and it has less than 1 gram of sugar. The cool thing about Ticino is you can scoop for scoop the same way you would take ground coffee, put that into your coffee maker, and just go ahead and brew it. So it's a really great alternative, so you're not getting a caffeine source. It's been less touched by me, human, and is more gut-based, so it's probably going to be better for me. If I put it through a refinery process, I'm trying to pull out what are considered impurities and make the oil cleaner. And so the difference between the refined and unrefined is pretty obvious. The unrefined is going to look a little bit more raw, yeah? And so that's why I was like, ooh, this is a great example. And then the difference between the two, beyond that, is how is the oil actually extracted? And for this, they're both extracted the exact same 100% mechanically expeller pressed, which basically means they take it and they put it into a big vat and then they just squeeze the crap out of it in like a sealed chamber. And when they do that, it's going to increase the temperature and can damage some of the fat. So this is going to be a better option for me because it's unrefined, but the best option is still going to be cold. Okay, so cold pressed and not mechanically expeller pressed.